thank you for your efforts and that of your team. It's evident by the document and your presentation. Where are we in terms of flexibility on the Guardian program? There's roughly $52 million left without question, and I know the Commissioner and I have a disagreement on the Guardian program, but there are significant population, a significant number of counties who do not, have not, and probably will not adopt the Guardian program. My statement before the question is, that in itself does not mean that those districts don't believe in school safety, obviously. But they may determine, for instance, that that money should be better placed in hardening or communication or other forms. So I guess my question is, and I've harped on this now for the better part of a year, is there any discussion in here, or will there be any discussion to give districts some flexibility, or will there be, let me rephrase it, is there any discussion of the program, the Guardian program, having flexibility for those districts not choosing or choosing not to have guardians, but obviously want to spend money for other school safety ideas?
I can't speak to what future conversations look like right now. I think what we're focused on is making sure that we use these funds to make sure that every school that needs to access a guardian has the opportunity to do so. We've seen great expansion of it in our charter schools. That is something that got clarified last legislative session. We've seen multiple schools taking advantage of that because it is a more affordable pathway to ensuring the safety and security of the schools. So at this point in time, we're obviously, from the legislation and the way the allocation is framed, we're continuing to stay focused on the expansion and introduction of new Guardian programs across the state. But I think if that conversation were to change, we would obviously come back to the board and make you aware.
Well, it's one more time. I think we're missing the boat here. I get the Guardian program. I get the conga line to sign up, but I think that's diminishing now. Yeah, we're working on charter schools, but what about those districts? And I, having been a school board member previously, they have certain rights as a district to make a determination of their own, what they think is right for school safety. I guess, again, I'd ask, and I'm assuming that I'm just one voice, that we look at the flexibility in that $52 million to allow districts to make their own decisions. And thank you.
I'm not going to let it go. First of all, we create, I want to say, and I wish, I don't know if Suzanne's here, but I want to say we increased it again to about $175 million for the districts for the hardening program, and I think there was over $100 million for SROs. The $50 million, it was just for the Guardian program, but far more investment went into hardening, far more investment, 400% more went into, give or take, in SROs. We increased in our LBR, we're up to $100 million for your input, Member Olenick, for mental health, all of that coming from the program, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas bill. But I just, again, I can't say it enough, and it's on those metrics that, Member Gibson, here's what we're going to do. We're going to act with urgency. Once we say is what's the best thing for our school children? What is absolutely the best thing for our school children? Then we're going to act with urgency and do it as quickly as possible. And we're going to measure and make it based on forensic evidence. We're going to make it based on facts. And so here's the fact world that we know right now. The fact world is number one. Every single person who was against the Guardian program a year ago was against SROs 3 decades ago. Not one single person. Every horror story. Oh my gosh, you're going to give a principal a handgun. This is a disaster. What if somebody comes in and we go into crazy hypothetical worlds? An alien comes down, doesn't recognize the teacher, and shoots up. It's just crazy world. Same crazy world existed for SROs. As soon as we were going to take an armed law enforcement officer and put him on a school, what if 5 kids tackle him, take his gun, take his taser, and shoot up the school? All those things never happened. Never happened with SROs. And so we create a Guardian program. And then, for flexibility for the districts, we say They want it to be a quote-unquote a security guard. That's not, the Guardian was based on Aaron Feis. Aaron Feis was a heroic coach who stood in the hallway and took umpteen bullets, saving kids without being able to fire back, and died. And I toured Marjorie Stoneman Douglas after that tragedy, and the most memorable moment, the most thing that you can't get out of your head, sometimes you're like, why did I even tour it? I should have gone like 2 weeks later, was the constant blood stain across the entire floor, out the door and on the pavement of Aaron Feis trying to drag himself out after being shot umpteen times, just the blood pouring out of his body. Aaron Feis deserved to be able to protect those kids as fully and as beneficially as possible to the safety of those students. And that's where that brainstorm came for the Aaron Feis program. So now we have a Guardian program. And the Guardian program basically is this: real guardians that was anticipated by the legislative body and the governor, and the real guardians are principals and Aaron Feis's, professionals. And yet, now we allow the flexibility to the districts, and they call the Guardian program a security guard program. And so basically, they go out and get these security guards. Well, guess what? We've had like 4, 5, 6 incidences just in the Guardian program. We have incidents, guess what? In the SRO program. We have, ever since it's been in place, incident. We have them in the Guardian program. 100% of the incidents are, guess what? The security guys, never anticipated. You want to know why? One is, if you're a security guard guardian, you're probably somehow, as we're seeing, down on your luck. You were dismissed from Tampa Bay Police Department. You were dismissed from the sheriff's office. You didn't pass something. You couldn't, whatever. And so now these guardians, security guards, are getting hired. They're somewhat down on their luck. None of them, almost none of them, have a college degree. And almost all of them have zero experience hanging out on a day-to-day basis with middle school, elementary school, and high school kids. So we have incidences like inappropriately touching students. Incidents like right here in Duval, where the guy took his gun and sold it so he could make an extra $750. And he's being prosecuted. Diana's doing a great job on that. But not one incident, not one single incident with somebody who loves those students. Somebody who has a college degree, somebody who's been in that school for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and somebody who has more training than an SRO on the streets. Here's what's going to happen. I get the world we live in. We do this every single time. The status quo fights because God help us, we have change. Even though the facts overwhelmingly say it's the best way to protect our school children. Sheriff Gualtieri, who chairs that commission, dead set against the Guardian program. Today is the biggest proponent for the Guardian program, the real Guardian program, in the entire state. Entire state. And he has flat out said, as a career law enforcement officer, the only way to effectively protect those students in the safest way, the most efficient way, and the most effective way is a real Guardian program where the person has that kind of experience, they love the students, and they're experienced in interacting with those students. And so I was with a superintendent on the phone 3 weeks ago, one of the largest districts in the state. School board's against the Guardian program, sheriff was against the Guardian program, and he literally told me the day's coming, because you want to know why? They're doing most of the SROs. But remember, to do SROs, they gotta budget 150% or 136% of SROs, because they never know. Johnny calls and says, my wife just got rushed to the emergency room. I'm going to the emergency room. Someone's got to cover my school. And so they have to have like 132, 134%, even though they only have capacity for 100. Well, that's another 36, whatever that 36% is $100,000, whatever more. And it's one guy on a campus that might have 5 buildings. And so here's where we're going to be. In 5 years, this won't even be a discussion. It really won't. Just like today, it's not a discussion. Nobody in this whole room has ever come or said to anybody in the last 5, 10 years, I have an issue with an SRO being on school property. And in 5 years, nobody will have a problem with real guardians in the schools protecting our kids. And we'll be doing it more effectively, more efficiently, and you can drop off your child at that school knowing that they have the absolute best line of defense for school safety. That's where we're headed. But I get right now we're in the status quo is, God help us, we can't fight the status quo. But we will, and we will succeed, and our children will be safer.
Well, and look, you and I, even privately, have had this discussion, and we always do it with, to some degree, I appreciate what you're saying. I just want to distinguish the fact that someone's love for children, someone's love for students, doesn't make them a protector of students. And I firmly believe that the training that an SRO gets, the training that a police officer gets, routinely as part of their role as a police officer is what is needed. I just don't believe, and you know, we can go back and forth. I'm not aware of the security companies and the people being down on their luck. I mean, I'm sure you're going to hear from a lot of security companies now. But what I do know is that I am concerned that that teacher, that impassioned teacher who has been trained by a Guardian program, who now has a gun, it's frightening to me. They are not trained to be police officers. They're trained to be teachers, trained to be good teachers. Their love for a student and their love for their school does not translate into protecting that school or that children. You know, it's a discussion you and I have had from moment one, and I'm not going to belabor it. We disagree, but I certainly enjoy, and I do enjoy, our discussions, but I'll never get there. So, thank you. And one more time,
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I'm with you, but
To a point.
no, honestly, Mike, that's why we put on there measurement matters. You know, we might even change it and say forensic evidence matters. Convince me. I mean, if someone in this room could convince me that black chairs in classrooms create every school an A, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's not intuitive. I don't like the idea. It sounds crazy. But if the evidence is there, then fine, put black chairs in every single classroom. And no, wait. But the fact is, what you're saying, Mike, isn't accurate. So how the training got established for a Guardian was looking at exactly what that police officer is trained for. And then they backed out those things that the entire hours. They looked at the entire 700-800 hours that a law enforcement on the street takes through the police academy, and they backed out those things that they don't need. So there's like 120 hours for a DUI stop. I'm not asking Coach Feist to do DUI stops, so we took it out. There's 100-some hours on how you present in a court of law, how you testify on the stand, not asking them to testify. So we got down to the hours, and it was like 80 or 90 hours of gun training, active shooter training, all the training that's required for a deputy on the street. And then we doubled it. We doubled it. We looked at it for a law enforcement to be on the street, storm into this classroom, this building right now to protect children, he has to have a 70 or 75% efficiency in the gun range. And we said, okay, for Guardians, let's make it 80%. And we went higher. On every level, factually, that Guardian is better trained than a law enforcement personnel on the street. That's a fact. It's a fact. And they have the same background screening. They have the same psychological screening. And any sheriff, it only can go through the sheriffs, any sheriff can reject anyone for any reason because they just don't feel like that person would be safe in a school. It's an excellent, excellent program. And I assure you, long after maybe all of us are here, it will be the way of schools. And our school already, I will tell you, our schools in Florida are safer than any other schools in the nation because of where we've gone with our school safety program. And it'll continue to go there, and it won't be an issue. It really won't.
Sure.
Mr. Gibson.
I just want to add to this, and we have a few members of our legislature here. We're in uncharted territory, in dealing with these problems. There is not a tried and true, and I think, we've seen this, and this is one reason. Listen, we're not the legislature. We're not creating policy here. We're carrying out what is in law and what was put in law by the legislature and signed by the governor. And I think the legislature realizes too, even after the shootings, laws are passed, you come back next session, you learn, you clean things up, and you keep moving forward with the goal of protecting children. And I think we'll see again, I'm sure we'll see again this coming session. We'll see some tweaks, we'll see some funding tweaks, we'll get feedback. And that's just the process that we go through, because we're in uncharted territory here. And so I think there's going to be speed bumps, there's going to be stuff, but Commissioner, I appreciate what you're saying about, the school districts that, sometimes there is change and there is something new, and it takes a while for people to get used to it. But again, I wasn't elected. I'm not a legislator. We're just sitting here carrying out the law that the legislature put in place. And if we want to have some policy change, that's for the legislature to address.